Military personnel of Reddit, what's the best, weirdest, funniest punishment you've seen handed down by a superior? USMC here in our unit we had one guy that would constantly hum songs. Well, one day our CO had enough of his behavior, so he tells him to report to his locker. So he goes to his locker and stands in front of it. CO tells him to get inside the locker. When he does, he shuts and locks the door with him inside. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a quarter and pushes it through the vent holes and tells the guy to start singing, and tells him that whenever someone puts a quarter in the slot he was to sing another song. This went on for 6 hours. The guy made around $15 in quarters and we were all in pain from laughing at him. Needless to say, he acquired the name Jukebox and never hummed again. Edit. Whoa. Thanks for the gold. What are they going to do? Bend my dog tags? Take my birthday away? Chuckle chuckle. Yep, apparently a Navy captain did just that once on purpose by deliberately sailing parallel to the international dateline, then slipping across it right on midnight. Tomorrow suddenly became yesterday and no birthday for you this year, you chucklehead. That's a lot of dedication just to punish one guy. You've apparently never been in the Navy. In US Army basic training, one soldier lost his canteen and asked the drill sergeant if he had seen it. The drill was angry at this for some reason and made the private wander around for a few hours asking all kinds of inanimate objects if they had seen his canteen. So things like, "Truck, have you seen my canteen?" Guy in basic dropped the biggest turd you've ever seen in the commode. So he shows the drill sergeants, who then make him suit up in full combat gear, weapon and all, and guard it all night. The whole halt. Who goes there? Pretty amusing. I saw a guy be forced to slow dance with a mop for 1 hour straight. Brilliant. What was the reason he had to do it? He did a shitty job mopping the floor. Marine boot camp. We had a guy that somehow got his watch through the in-dock. They take all your crap when you first get there. Well, the DIs found out he had it when they saw him wearing it one day, so they put him in the squad bay trash can and put the lid on it. Every time they walked by and kicked it, he'd pop out with his watch and yell, "Sir, the time on deck is 0945, and then go back into his can like the freaking Grouch from Sesame Street. It was really, really hard not to laugh at that. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. I was in a gender mixed company in basic. The third floor of the barracks was split with females on one half and males on the other. Males were not allowed in the female half and vice versa. My platoon was out back practicing throwing grenade bodies, and a window on the female side of the third floor opened and a male sneaked out of the window onto the ledge. It was immediately obvious to everyone, including our drill sergeant, that he had been in there messing around with a female, and a drill sergeant must have come down the hall, forcing him to get out onto the ledge so he wouldn't get caught. Our drill sergeant looked at the guy for a minute and then yelled really sarcastically, "Don't do it, private, you have lots to live for." Then they put him on suicide watch and made him hand over his belts and tie and shoelaces and everything that he could hang himself with, and made him drag his newly bare mattress out into the hallway next to the fire guard desk and sleep out there every night until we graduated 4 weeks later. And they made his battle buddy sleep on the floor next to him for the first week. TLDR. Male caught messing around with female. Treated like potential suicide for remaining month of BCT. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I forgot to mention that we all called the guy airborne for the rest of basic. I wrote a bad check while stationed in Korea. 206 over the limit. My punishment? To cut the parade field grass with scissors by morning. How much did you cut? Not enough. In the Marine Corps, when we really ducked up, we would go fishing. It is where you squat down like you're sitting in a chair and hold a shovel out in front of you in the air like a fishing pole. Then you just sit there for a long time, and if the shovel would start to droop down, my sergeant would grab the tip of the shovel and start to shake it and make me pretend I was reeling in the big one. One time me and a buddy got in trouble together, so they made him fish and me flop around on the deck like a fish he had already caught for almost an hour. One of my friends from my first base and I were swapping basic stories, and I think he had the scariest. On the first day of third week they hadn't performed up to standards, and the MTI told them he'd be staying late that night to try to fix them. The MTI calls his wife to let her know he'd missed dinner and would be home late, and she blew the duck up. She was screaming at the MTI about how he's just using his job as an excuse, how he doesn't even care about her, and while all this is going on the MTI is just pleading with her. She hangs up on him, and the MTI looks at the flight with this expression of cold hate, and says he was going to his office for a minute to think of an appropriate way to punish the flight for their sheet. Basic training is a lot of talk. The MTIs can PT you until your body gives out and scream at you, but they can't actually hurt you. In that moment though, as the room waited for the MTI to come back, they weren't so sure that would be the case. He was going to make them pay, and my friend said that was the only time in basic he felt true fear. It turns out, it was all an act. The MTI had had that genuinely happen during a previous flight, and it had terrified them into compliance so well he got his wife to pull it off every flight afterwards. My brother told me that when he was in basic, a drill sergeant yelled at this guy to beat his face, meaning to do push-ups. Said guy had no clue it meant that, and promptly punched himself in the face, really hard, and fell to the ground. The drill sergeant had to walk that one off, and my brother said you could hear him laughing hysterically as he walked behind a building. Not totally relevant, but I figured I'd share. Edit, thank you all for the sweet, tender, juicy karma. You honor me greatly. I can almost definitely guarantee I'm going to screw it up. Thank you, all the same. Another from basic was a private was caught walking to the showers without wearing his clothes. Just holding his towel and walking nude. The showers were in the same bay, and it was just males in the bay, but a female drill from another platoon came in and saw him, and made him drop and give 50 push-ups while nude, and a fetish was born. We were deployed in Iraq and a guy was pissing in water bottles instead of walking to the bathroom at night. This is a common thing, but this guy wasn't getting rid of the bottles. He'd keep them underneath his cot for some reason. When the first sergeant found this out, he made the guy report to the commander while holding all of his piss bottles in a box in front of him. They tore into this guy while he was holding a box of his own urine. A guy I worked with had a habit of falling asleep at his desk. He was a real scumbag. Unfortunately, he was also a one-star general's son. They made him sit at his desk with one of those exercise yoga ball things. The ducker still fell asleep, but he would hit his head on the desk or fall over. He also decided to tell his supervisor he had an appointment, but instead took a nap in his room. They called the cops on him and had him arrested for dereliction of duty. Fun stuff. Officers can't punish soldiers with any punishment that doesn't follow guidelines. That said, they can be ordered some stupid things. My friend got ordered to move a box weighing about 50 cells from the barracks to the shower every 2 minutes for 2 hours. The officer's reason for it was because he didn't know where to put it and was trying to decide if it should be at the barracks or the shower. In the end, he ended up telling him to load it up in the truck. Having to apply suntan lotion to a sheet ton of large rocks so they don't get sunburned. Then, having to flip every rock and reapply as needed. I have an opposite story where we punished our superior. When I was in South Korea in the mid-2000s, we had an absolutely hunt of a lieutenant. He walked around like his sheet didn't stink, thought he knew everything there was to know. Pretty much like most LTs. One weekend a bunch of us were walking back from the PX, loaded up with beer and snacks for the weekend. Like each of us had at least a case of beer and a few bags each, hands were totally full. Our LT walks past us and we nodded and said sir instead of saluting. Most officers won't make you put down all your sheet just to salute, at least the good ones. This guy flips out about us not saluting, and proceeds to PT the duck out of us for about 30 minutes. After that it was on. Anytime we saw this guy, we would grab everyone we could, form a line with about 20 feet distance between each person, and walk towards him. He would have to salute every single one of us. It didn't matter where he was. When we saw him, we had about 20 soldiers beelining towards him just to salute. The best was when he was on his cell phone, cause he would have to put it down every 10 seconds just to salute all of us. This went on for about 3 weeks, him saluting everyone all the time every single day. He finally got tired of it, and asked us not to salute him anymore. In basic, when going to throw out some trash, left my rifle, which you are not supposed to do. Myself and 2 of my buddies had to hold onto our ISALT packs in one hand like a shield and long sticks in the other like a spear. Then we had to stack up in a line on a tree and push with our shields for 5 minutes with our spears raised, yelling war cries. Apparently the Spartans did this for training. And apparently if I don't have my rifle in a combat situation, I will need to know how to do this. Probably the 3-way. One guy on his back doing sit-ups. One guy with his butt of that guy's face doing monkey duckers. The last guy's face between the sit-up guy's legs doing push-ups. Funniest sheet I ever saw. A private put his camo on looking like Gene Simmons. He had it on for an hour before the drill sergeant put him upside down in a tree shouting, "I'm a chameleon, no one can see me." Military kid here. Watched my dad tell a Marine to paint rocks because the guy said that the motor pool looked like sheet. He spent 6 hours painting every rock white. It rained that night and he had to start over the next day. Yeah, my dad is a shoe cake. Another oldie but goodie is making a private hug a tree. It all depends on how you take it. Some privates thought it was funny to have to hug a tree, but for some reason some of them thought it was really embarrassing. When I was a young private in the infantry, back in about 1993, I got in trouble for having a 6-inch knife on my field gear. Knives of that size had to be stored in the arms room, go figure. I got a summarized Article 15, basically a slap on the wrist, which was 7 days extra duty, 7 days confined to barracks. The extra duty was cleaning up after the duty day, mopping and waxing the floors, taking out the trash from the admin offices, etc. Confinement to the barracks was meant to be the harsh part, but we lived in a semi-remote area of post, so AAFS opened a bar for the area in the basement of the barracks. Needless to say, I spent my 7 days confined to the barracks in the basement, enjoying some frosty beverages, darts and bar food. To this day, I still don't know if my commander at the time was stupid enough to not know that there was a bar in our basement, or cool enough to not cars. Edit, I just found him on Facebook, and he did, in fact, cars a lot. When we were heading to Iraq, we had to pass through Kuwait. Kuwait, being the transient hub for soldiers heading to and leaving Iraq, it is very chaotic. As a result of jet lag and the chaotic nature of Kuwait, my buddy had brought his weapon to the shower, but forgot to grab it on his way back to the tent. Shortly after he left, a sergeant came bursting through the door to see him sitting on his cot messing around with his new video camera he had just purchased to bring on the deployment. His punishment was to get up, take his weapon and camera, and go sit in the community shower area and make sure no one else leaves their weapon in the shower for the night. So, what you would see when you went to take off your clothes to get in the shower was a fully dressed guy with a video camera just sitting there looking at you. Army here. Whilst an Iraq guy in unit got in trouble and had to clean every porta-john from the motor pool back to the tents. That was a lot of latrines, and you can't even imagine what an Iraqi porta-john looks and smells like. Either way, dude was puking and it took him about 11 HRs. Dude was not a shitbag after that. I always thought the basics were best. Like the duffel bag drag if you didn't lock your locker when you should have. You had to pack all your gear into 2 duffels and carry them around all day. Or if you got caught fighting, you had to hold hands with that person the rest of the day. I use that one on my kids now. Not military personnel, but told to me by someone who was. Guy had to dig a 6 feet deep hole and bury the newspaper that the CO had just finished reading. He digs the hole, buries the newspaper, and covers up the hole. It takes basically all day. He gets back to the CO and tells him he has buried the newspaper like he asked. The CO then asks him what was the date on that newspaper. He doesn't know, so he has to go get the newspaper he buried and see what date it is, rebury it, and tell his CO. It was supposed to teach him the lesson of needing to pay attention to details. During an inspection in basic training, a piece of lint was found in our dryer. I ordered to handcuff the intruder and construct a detention facility where the intruder could be interrogated. I was to have an in-depth report on who he was, where he was from, and what he was doing in the building. I was a USAF firefighter. A FNG at station did not properly do checkouts on his vehicle and didn't make sure his water tank and PSI-on tires on apparatus were good. After downtime, my fire chief told him to don his gear on and grab a big trash bag. He made him stand on the flight line side of the fire station facing the tower and told him that the weather system was down and they needed him to stand there to get the directions of the wind. He was there for 2 HRs. Every time he put his hands down, he would walk up to him and threaten to write him up and made up an AFI. 2 guys were grab-assing in formation. We were downrange doing some field training exercises and our drill sergeant caught them. He made them hold hands together all day, also assigned them as battle buddies for the day, so they had to go everywhere together. He told them that any time another drill sergeant asked why the duck they were holding hands, they were only allowed to say one thing. He told them to shout it, because we love each other, drill sergeant. I was in a school, and rolled out late. Showed up to class late, unshaven and with boots but no socks. My instructor took notice and made me stand in the hallway and tell everyone that walked by that I was trying to grow a mustache and my feet stink for a good hour. When I was in advanced training, there was a female that always bugged me in formation, and somehow she always ended up near me. Anyways, she wouldn't stop talking and physically touching me, and one day I decided that the most effective way to make her stop was to throw a dime at her. Yes, a dime. I threw a dime at her and it hit her neck. One of my drill sergeants saw me and said, "What are you two doing?" This took place after the formation had been released. I was quick on my feet as usual, hence the dime throwing, and I went to parade rest and said, "We were playing catch with the dime." So he made this female and I throw the dime standing the same distance away from each other that we were already at back and forth, and said we could leave once we caught it 5 consecutive times each, 10 total, without dropping it. The catch, pun intended, for every time that one of us didn't catch the dime, we owed 20 push-ups. More payback by an equal than punishment by a superior, but my dad was a CB, naval construction worker. He was 2 members of the village people in one package, during Vietnam. Another guy on his team was a tinker who was constantly being teased by the other seamen because he would take things apart and end up losing a screw or bolt or something. One night the tinkerer was on watch with 2 other guys who gave him the most shit. The watchtowers they were in were hastily built 2-level shacks with a watch point up top and an enclosed room below. So the tinkerer is sitting in the dark all alone in the top of the shack looking around at loose nails and the gaps in the floorboards when an idea comes to him. He drops a nail through the gap which makes a pinging noise on the ground when it lands on the floor below where his abusers are snoozing. That wakes them up and they ask him what the hell he's lost this time. To which he responds by asking them to find the pin for his grenade which he just dropped. Then kicked back and restrained laughter while they began frantically searching the floor for the non-existent pin. Edit. I just realized my father also rode motorcycles and is half Cherokee. He is the village people. I haven't been in any military, but I have been told this gem. Some guy avoided having to greet a high-ranking officer in the street by crossing to the other sidewalk. The officer noticed this and later asked him why he didn't greet him, to which that guy responded with, "I didn't see you." The officer decided the poor guy should stand in front of a window for a weekend to train his seeing skills. A fellow lance corporal at the time let out a sneeze. Huge snot rocket pops out and lands on his cheek. I mean, just one beast of a thing. My sergeant standing in front of him talking to him while this happened let out a, "What the duck, you nasty bitch, put it back," and right back up it went. Funniest cheat I have seen. Edit. Gold? You sir or madam must be confused. Now notice that spider on the wall behind you. Pocket sand and run. Thanks. During my first deployment to Iraq as a 50 cal gunner, I had a salty sergeant for a team leader. Dude had been at the tip of the spear for the Iraq invasion, been to Baghdad in 2005, and now he was back for his third time in 2007. Not only was he intimidating, but he knew how to discipline you as if you stepped out of line. I was a stupid, young private first class with about a year in the army. I knew what was right and what was wrong and, thankfully, was able to get on his good side. Our driver though, nuh-uh. He was a short, retarded specialist with a crustache who recently did 4 years in Korea. This dude was so off, he even re-enlisted for it when his first stint was over. Dude was just ducking weird and gross. Always had an excuse for everything. Nothing was ever his fault. He loved trying to pass the blame down my way, mostly because he outranked me. Our sergeant normally knew what was up and corrected him accordingly. Well, during a convoy security mission one day in southern Iraq, just outside of Diwania, he hit a pothole. Like a big one. Probably 20 LX20W. Our sergeant flips the duck out, asking what the hell he was doing. The driver tries blaming it on me, saying I never let him know it was there. Since I was the gunner, I had to make everything aware to him because I was the eyes and ears. The sergeant chews him the duck out, saying it was the driver's damn fault he didn't avoid the pothole, since I was up top scanning for threats. We were the lead vehicle, so it's not like this pothole was obscured by anything, especially since it was in broad daylight. The driver then starts saying, "I don't know, Sergeant. I couldn't see it because I'm short." He wasn't that ducking short. Guy was maybe 5'7", give or take an inch. He wasn't paying attention, and that's what the sergeant wanted to hear, because it was the truth. Well, this irritates the duck out of our sergeant, and he calls for the entire convoy. Something like 20 semis, 6 HRW MMVs and 2 M1117 ASVs, to halt. He then tells me to pass down an empty 50 cal can. I do so with a quickness. The sergeant then passes the can to the driver and makes him use it as a booster seat. The driver protests, then my sergeant gives him a direct order to do so. The driver backs down and does it. At every gate to every base we approached, my sergeant made the driver open the door and show every guard what he was sitting on. He was then forced to sing "I'm a little teapot, me oh my. I sit on a high chair so we don't blow up and die." Most of the guards just laughed their ass off. A few radioed for other guards to come see it. He was the laughingstock of our battalion for months. I once spent 12 hours cleaning screens on Windows. That doesn't sound bad, does it? Try this. Find a small wire about the same gauge as the holes in your window screen. Gently push the wire through the hole in the screen to make sure that the hole is empty. Repeat for 3 minutes, then look away from the screen. Anything weird with your eyes? Try it for hours. Had a guy in a warehouse drop a pallet load of assorted nuts and bolts off a forklift. Boxes broke open, 100,000 little nuts and bolts everywhere of various sizes. He had to sweep them into a pile, repair the boxes, fit each nut to a screw to make sure of the size. The pile was then inspected. Then he had to remove each nut from the screw and place the screw in the proper box, then place the nut in the proper box. Probably 25 or 50 per box, I don't remember. Doesn't sound too bad, right? Took 3 12-hour days. He wasn't allowed to sit down. He had to bend over at the waist, pick up a tiny nut and screw, straighten up, screw them together, then bend over for another, more than 100,000 times. Think about it.